And on multiple occasions in court today, the Duke was left stumped when told individual news stories he claims were sourced from hacking were actually either published by other media outlets days previously or came directly from Buckingham Palace. So this is the moment when it was put to him that a Daily Mirror story on his time at Eton was also run by the Times newspaper on the same day, and both stories had actually come from a press association alert the day before.
Would it come as a surprise for you to know an article in the Times on the same day as the Daily Mirror contained the same quote and attribution?
No.
Presumably you wouldn't suggest the quote from the Times was a result of hacking or unlawful information gathering?
I have no idea. You'd have to ask them.
Why have you maintained a claim for damages on the basis of these two articles?
It's based on legal advice because Mr. Steve Atkinson was the author of the article and what's been previously admitted by the Mirror Group.
So, in light of the Duke's wobbly performance today, do you believe his evidence? I want to know what you think on this. Dan at gbnews.com. Vote in our poll at GB News on Twitter. Those results shortly. But doing battle on this now, Prince Harry's biographer, Angela Levin, and Dr. Tessa Dunlop, the writer of Elizabeth and Philip, a story of young love, marriage and monarchy. So, Angela Levin, do you believe what your old mate Harry had to say in court today?
No, I don't. But can I just say to Tessa, who I've known quite well, that I'd be very grateful if she doesn't start shouting over me and waving her arms and her hair around and make it into a fight. I think we should just both behave in a very civilised manner, and I'll give you time and you give me time. Is that OK?
Good for me. Tessa, are you OK with that?
I have absolutely no idea why that was Angela Levin's opening gambit. Maybe proceed, please, with the forensic analysis of what happened in court today.
Angela?
Yeah, certainly. No, I don't believe it. I think that he had various plans to do this, and he's been building it up, as he says, his life's work. I think he wanted to exert some power because he doesn't have that at home, because Meghan, he agrees that she should be the powerful one and he just follows on behind. And I think that he wants to still be a victim, and this is a cry from a victim who actually doesn't have the facts right.
Tessa Dunlop, did you believe Prince Harry's evidence?
Well, it's absolutely fascinating that you've spent the first 26 minutes of your show referring to him as a delusional duke and deriding him, when in fact he just happens to be the most famous claimant among many. It's worth bearing in mind that the news groups, just one today, the Mirror on the rack, but of course a couple more in the pipeline, that they have paid out hundreds of millions of pounds to claimants. Now, no newspaper group does that unless they've got something to hide. Harry is a rare exception insofar as he is so rich and so famous, he can afford to crash into court and take a punt on what we know was more broadly criminal behaviour rife, particularly among Britain's tabloids. And you need to bear in mind as well, if you would, that his solicitors only need to prove their case on the balance of probability. So while you might be smirking today, Dan, let's wait and hear what the judge decides.
Tessa, there's just a couple of things I want to pick up with you on that. Firstly, you're completely right. This is a civil case, not a criminal case. So what he has to prove, absolutely, the bar is lower. Tessa, I absolutely do not deny that there was serious criminal activity in many tabloid newspapers decades ago. But I'm sorry, you can't just run into court trying to bring down journalists in a newspaper group saying, I've just got a hunch. You need to have evidence. And lots of the other claimants, Tessa, have evidence. They either have whistleblowers who say, yes, we hacked this guy's phone, or there's evidence in the notepads of particular hackers. Now, that is not the case with Harry. So he might want to believe that he was hacked, but there's no evidence of it, Tessa.
In your opinion, I would allege the opposite. And it's worth bearing in mind that prior to these legal proceedings, the Mirror Group has already apologised to Harry for one unlawful act of information
Not hacking,
gathering.
though. That wasn't about hacking.
Are you telling me that one of our most famous British individuals through the 90s and the early 2000s was the exception to the tabloid rule of acquiring information nefariously? I find that hard to believe.
Well, look, I'll put that to Angela Levin. Angela, all I'd say is that there's no evidence of it. And evidence matters, facts matter. Harry can have his feelings, Angela, but we've got to focus on what's real, what actually happened.
Yeah, you have to give facts, that's it. I mean, it's not an emotional place where you can just be generalising. You have to be absolutely on the button and know what you're talking about, dates and times. You can't say somebody goes onto your mobile phone when actually you didn't have the mobile 2 years ago when you were very angry with them. So it's a sort of nonsense. One of the things I think about Harry, though, I'm talking about him personally, is that, you know, he's been very addicted to drugs. And I co-wrote something for the Telegraph tomorrow morning, which we feel that he's got the same sort of feeling about taking things to court. There's litigants who just keep going backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards to the court to try and get money or to just be heard. And I think that perhaps Harry's got a touch of that, and that makes it understandable why he's behaving in such a ridiculous manner.
I mean, Tessa, would you agree with that, or would you say that Harry would maybe say he's tried a lot of drugs to help him on his mental journey, but he's not addicted?
I'm not going to talk about Harry's drug taking or his academic ability. I've come on air tonight to talk about a spectacular court case. And incidentally, I was there outside Roll's house, and so was the world's media, listening to what Harry has to say. His opinions about our press and our government being internationally platformed. And incidentally, while you on GB News you're platforming the idea that Harry was delusional, what Harry said didn't stack up, I for one took away a very different scene. Andrew Green KC, a seasoned commercial barrister, actually having to really work forensically, going over article and article. And Harry, for a man who the tabloids did dub a thicko, I thought coming back on the counter-offensive, he remained calm, he remained lucid. I think he had one kind of
didn't have
mental
any
blank.
evidence,
Well, this
Tessa.
was hours and hours. I'm sorry.
Where was the evidence? Just give me one example, Tessa. Tessa, just give me one example of the evidence that he was hacked. That's all I'm asking for.
I think, actually, though, that he behaved very, very badly towards the royal family. He knows that if you're a royal family member, you do not talk about politics. And he said this country is an appalling state, partly because of the press.
He attacked the Conservative government.
And partly because
Angela,
of the
can I
government.
also ask you about the title issue? Because I thought that Harry had agreed that he was no longer going to be an HRH and that he was happy being a private citizen. Today in court, when he was asked by his perma-tanned lawyer, David Sherborne, what he wanted to be referred to as, he said His Royal Highness and then Prince Harry.
Yeah,
so does he still think
my
he's a working royal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he said that to the Queen. He promised the Queen that before she died. And he hasn't listened to that. Now, you cannot hang on to your titles when you actually hate the country, you hate the government, which you shouldn't be really talking about loudly to people. You keep it to yourself. And he just...
he broke all protocols there. Tessa, final word to you.
Just quickly, you talk about where's the proof. The whole point is this is claim and counterclaim. How were these articles, these ideas, these stories, these deeply personal narratives about his girlfriend, about his opinions he shared with a butler, with his brother, about his mother at his prep school, how were they acquired if not through unlawful means? And incidentally, on his title, he was referred to throughout the proceedings as Prince Harry. He is a non-working royal. He can say what he likes about our government. 1 minute say you don't like him attacking the royal family. When he turns his eye on the government, then you have a problem with that. There is no pleasing you on GB News. Let's see how this plays out in the court. I, for one, commend him for his bravery, because there are far bigger.
Well, that's why we have the clash. That's why we have the clash. Because you know what? If you've been watching Sly News today all day, Tessa, you've only got one side of the argument. You would think that Prince Harry was a credible witness. Today, we've given you both sides, so that's what's important about GB News. Dr. Tessa Dunlop, Angela Levin, thank you both so much. But who do you agree with? Do you believe Prince Harry's High Court evidence? Very simple question. Faye writes, no, I don't believe it. He's found out what actual cross-examination is, unlike those cosy interviews he's used to from people like Oprah. Caleb writes, calling it evidence has been generous. He has brought a High Court case based on hearsay and so-called suspicions. And Brad, this is via the email actually, writes, there's no reason not to believe him. The media has a lot to answer for. And your verdict is now in. Just 16% of you did believe Prince Harry's High Court evidence today, 84% of you didn't.